Hi everyone! Today I have an exciting video for you all. So last night I was kind of browsing on Instagram, I was looking at my Instagram stories, and someone posted what looked to be a leak of the new Anastasia palette, and then this morning when I woke up, Trendmood had already posted it and now it is official, so I feel like now I can talk about it. But I kind of thought about this for a while last night, and as much as I like the palette and I'm absolutely going to get it because I think it's so exciting that Anastasia is coming out with something colorful, because I only own the Subculture palette because none of her other palettes have really been up my alley, so I'm so excited to finally be able to try out the good Anastasia formula. So I hope you guys are as excited about me doing looks with this palette as I am, because I cannot wait. So I want to get into this video, and what I want to do is I want to redesign the palette in a way that I feel like I would have loved this palette to be. This would have been my perfect version of this palette. Now, I don't want to change the whole theme of the palette. I still want to make sure that the inspiration of the palette, which is the Riviera, is still prevalent in the redesigned palette. That's something that was very important for me, because I don't want to just sit down and make a whole new palette, because that kind of defeats the purpose. So I just want to make a couple of small tweaks to make this palette really pop. So that is what we're going to be doing. Let me scooch over a little bit so we have room for some pictures right here. So let me just put up the original photo of the palette that is going to be released on the screen so you can see it. So my main problem with this palette is that a lot of these shades are extremely similar, and a lot of the time I just feel like we don't really need this. So this is going to be the palette that I wish that I had made, and as you can see, there's like subtle differences. I try to keep a lot of the shades kind of similar, and I still feel like I kept the vibe of the first palette. So I actually started off by keeping all of the first top 4 shimmers the same, because I felt like they had a place in the palette. So I did decide to keep the first shade, which is a very, very light, I think, white shimmer. And that for me is something that is perfect, because I like using very light shades in my inner corner, so I think that is great. It's also going to look really good as a lid shade or as a halo eye, but you can also use this to lighten up some of the other shimmers, which I think is great. And the second shade, I wanted to keep that one as well, and it is a bronzy shade. It's not really something that I reach for a lot, but the reason why I kept this shade is because I also kept the matte brown. And yes, browns are not usually something that I reach for, but I also kind of wanted to see it from the eyes of the brand. And Anastasia is a brand that always likes to have some neutrals in her palette, so I didn't want to completely take away everything, because then it wouldn't look like an Anastasia palette anymore, so I did decide to keep that in there. And having a dark brown is something that I'm okay with. You know, I don't use browns that much, but I don't hate having a very, very dark brown for deepening up other shades, so I did decide to keep that one as well. And like I said, that is why I wanted to keep that bronze shade in this palette. The next shade I thought was absolutely beautiful. This is a shade that really spoke to me when I first saw the sneak peek of this palette, and it made me really excited. So there was no way I was going to change that, and also I really felt like you needed blues in this palette because it is like Riviera themed. So when I think of the Riviera, I think of like the ocean, you know, I just felt like that really needed to be in there. And next up we have a kind of a red shimmer. I'm not really sure what like the undertone of this is, but to me it looks to be a very red shimmer with maybe a slight pink undertone. And I'm not really sure I see the connection between the theme of the palette and this shadow, but I like the shadow enough that I wanted to keep it in. So the first shadow that I decided I wanted to change is the next one. And when I saw the swatch of this, I was kind of like, what is that? It sort of felt like a gunmetal silver, like a dark silver, and I was like, I don't really feel like that goes with the palette that well. And looking at the other shades and looking at the other mattes, I was like, what would I realistically pair this with? And I couldn't really think of anything. So I decided instead I wanted to make this a very lilac shimmer. So a very light purple, because I felt like with a matte purple this would go really nice together, and I like to have the option of making monochromatic looks. So when I see a dark matte, I always look for some kind of a shimmer that is in the same color. Whether it's lighter or darker doesn't really matter, but if I have a purple matte in the palette, I really like to have some kind of a purple shimmer as well. So I thought that this would be a really nice addition, because this shimmer is going to go really nicely with all of the other mattes that I put into this palette as well. And so moving on, we have a yellow shimmer, which I love me a good yellow shimmer. This one does seem to have a bit more of a gold undertone to it than just yellow, and it is a bit more on the brighter yellow side, but I love that, because again, when I think of the theme of the palette, I think of the Riviera, I think of like yachts and sailboats and being outside and sun, so I can see like the sun inspiration coming from that shadow, and I love that. And the last shimmer I also decided to keep. So you can see I only changed one of the shimmers because I felt like that was enough to make an impact on the palette. Now for me, Mostly when I complain about a palette, I complain about the mattes because I feel like the matte color story needs to just have more variations and more depth and more just contrasting colors, I guess. So I did decide to keep the last shade because I felt like that one went really good with the other blue, and I don't mind having a variation of 2 different blues in the palette because the Riviera has a lot to do with blue, so I really wanted to keep that in there. So I'm going to start on the mattes now, and I guess I'll just start on the right side since we already talked about that first brown, so I did decide to keep the dark brown in the palette. Moving on over, we have the dark purple, which, yes, I love me a good dark purple, and I'm so excited to see if they have nailed the formula on this because I feel like there's a chance that they might have. I've heard so many good things about the Anastasia formula, especially the mattes, so really excited about that. I'm happy I could have a purple in this palette and not have to put it in myself by changing it and then being able to actually buy the palette that has a purple in it, so this is great. I also decided to keep the next one. Again, you see I have not changed a lot of these shadows, but I wanted to keep in sort of a transition shade because I felt like this shadow could go really well with both the pink, which is next to it, but also with the purple. And this is also something that you could use if you wanted a very natural look, which is, you know, not up my alley at all. But you could put this one in the crease and then you could go in with the lighter shimmer shade on the lid and just be out the door, you know? So I did want to keep this in here, and I also felt like this could be really nice with the purple shadow, so this one could go really nicely with a lot of the mattes in this palette, which I thought is great for someone who likes to build up a crease gradually, which again, I'm not really the type who do that, but I want to see it from the brand's perspective and I want it to be a usable palette for a lot of people, so I thought the shade needed to be in there. And obviously moving on over, we have the bright pink, and that shade is so up my alley. It works really nicely with the purple, it works really nice with the brown, it works nicely with the yellow, you can mix the two, you get an orange, so I just thought that this would be a really good staple to have in this palette. It's also going to look really nice with that shimmery kind of red shade, so I'm all over this, and this is where I want to change some stuff up. So moving on, we have a teal blue, which I really felt like we needed to have a matte blue of some sort to go with the theme of the palette, because you can't really have a blue shadow and then not have anything to really go with it. Again, I'm such a sucker for a monochromatic look, or being able to make a monochromatic look, so I felt like I needed to put a blue in here, and I didn't want to put a dark blue or a light blue. I kind of played around with different variations of blues and I wasn't really happy until I put in a teal. And teal is something I feel like is very on trend right now. I feel like it's a shadow that a lot of people like to use. Teals go really nice with purples, they go really nice with pinks, they also go really nice with browns and yellows, so I just felt like this was a very versatile shade in this palette, especially with both the mattes and the shimmers. And then the next shadow, I didn't really change that much. You can see in the first picture, now I don't really know how this palette is going to look in real life and how vibrant the shadow is going to be, but in the picture it just looks like a very muted, toned down mustard shade, and I wanted to just amp this up a little bit and make it a bit more bright and a bit more intense and just have more impact. So I made it into more of a warm mustard that has a bit more saturation to it, and I just feel like you're going to be able to make such beautiful looks with this shadow, and this shadow is also going to mix really nicely into all of the other ones. It's going to be a shadow that you can use to blend out the pink with, you can use it to blend out the teal with, you can use it to blend out the brown with. It doesn't really go well to blend out purple with because they are complementary colors, so you gotta be a little bit careful there. And that's another reason why I wanted to put in some other colorful mattes, because if you only have a matte yellow and a matte purple, a lot of people are going to have a hard time with that if they don't really know much about color theory, and they're going to have problems with the shadows muddying up and just not looking that great. So I felt like putting in the teal really made a big difference, and it's going to make it so much more versatile. And the last shadow that I have, now the first one that they had in their original palette is of course one that you can set your primer with, and I know that a lot of people love this, but let's be real, we all have this shade, we don't need it anymore. It's not that hard to just dip into another palette if you really want to set your primer. I just feel like putting this into every single palette is a waste of space, because why wouldn't you put a shadow in there that is more unique? So I decided to go with a matte white, which is not something that's in a lot of palettes, but the reason why I wanted to put this in here is because you can see that a lot of the other mattes that I have here are more on the darker side. None of them are really transition shades, and like I said, I don't really care if there's no transition shades because I don't personally use that. But I felt like this matte could also be used to set your primer with if you really wanted to. It would just kind of brighten it up a little bit. but it would also be great to mix other shadows with. Like imagine if you mix the matte white with the teal, then you end up with this beautiful kind of lighter teal shade, and you could use that as a transition shade and then go in with the teal after. You could also mix it with the purple to make more of a lilac to go with that lilac shimmer. So I just felt like there's a lot of things that you can do with this white shade. You could also use it on top of a cut crease to make a really white cut crease, which is something I love to do. And it would also look really nice as an inner corner shade. If you put down something tacky first and then put the white on top, it would really make your eyes pop. So this is the palette that I came up with, and honestly, I really want to buy this palette. I wish this palette existed. I would be so all over that, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to settle with the original Anastasia palette, which again is fine. It's still a beautiful palette. I'm still excited to have it, and let me know down below what you think. Let me know if you would change anything about this palette. Let me know what you would change. I would love to hear your thoughts, because I feel like a lot of people have kind of mixed opinions about this palette, so let me know your opinions down below and we can all read them and kind of talk about it together in the comments. So yeah, that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this little redesign. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, because I have so much fun redesigning stuff, even though I haven't been doing it that much, but it's something that I definitely want to continue doing. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. If you are new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.